Hey, AP Psychers, just wanted to record a quick teacher talk about 9.3, the first part, looking at conformity. We'll take a look at compliance tomorrow. So when we talk about conformity, we're looking at norms, conformity, normative social influence, and informational influence. We'll get to compliance on the second half there. Make sure that you do know that you identify the contributions of the key researcher in this conformity area, which is Solomon Asch, and we'll end up talking about that at the end. Norms are the unwritten social rules that we follow. So we, before COVID, shake hands when we are greeting someone. I'll be interested to see how that unwritten rule of greeting changes itself. We may choose never to sit in the theater seat next to someone if we can choose any other seat in the theater, because we are following a social norm of not encroaching in this Western society on people's personal space. Social norm, another great example is that you say bless you to someone who is sneezing, even though you really have no idea where that notion comes from. In part, it comes from wishing to keep the soul in the body, from a medieval concept that the soul is leaving the body during a sneeze. Just something ridiculous, but it's a norm. It's an unwritten rule that you follow. Now, the question will become, why do I follow these rules? Well, the answer to that is because of the pressure that you feel in trying to gain someone's approval or avoid their disapproval, and that's called the normative social influence. You call it peer pressure. It's the emotion that you feel. It's the verb in our sentence. It's why we follow those norms. It's why, if I were in an empty movie theater and I sat right next to you when I had many other places to sit, you would look at me, and rightfully so, as if I were a freak. I would have a disapproval from you. The pressure that I feel not to do that is called the normative social influence. It's why we're sensitive to social norms. Now, conformity is my behavior. It's the result. So if normative social influence is the cause, me not wanting to feel this pressure, and so avoiding it or changing it or doing something, that tension, conformity is the results, the effects of that tension. Here, it's the behavior. That's the thing I would highlight. It's the behavior that I do in order to fit in with a group. My best example of this is how we dress. We will fit in with groups based upon what we wear. Back in 2012 and 14, that was the Uggs, the dark jeans, and the North Face jacket. We were changing behaviors to fit in with a group. Normative social influence is the cause, and conformity is the effect. Informational social influence is another way that we are influenced by people. Here, we are influenced by their opinions about reality. My example here is Yelp for you. Yelp is a fantastic platform that gives you lots of people's opinions about a restaurant, and I oftentimes use that to make my decisions. You may use Rotten Tomato as your informational social influence on choosing a movie, or Metacritic on your informational social influence to choose a video game. Now, you can go ahead and take a look at this video with an example of conformity. It's pretty funny. You might also need to understand, not might, I apologize. You really need to understand the foremost researcher for conformity, 1955 experiment done by Solomon Asch. Solomon Asch does this experiment where he asks people about a standard line and says, hey guys, which one of these, 1, 2, 3 is the best fit? Now, clearly, 2 is the best fit. But what he did is he took 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 people that were in on the experiment working with Solomon Asch. And he told them, hey, after the first couple of trials, I want you to all together give the wrong answer. So when I show you that standard line for this next trial, go ahead and answer 3. So number 1 answered 3, this guy answered 3, this guy answered 3, this guy answered 3. And by the time the innocent participant, the one who's not in on the study, this guy right here, by the time he is in on that, he feels a ton of pressure to give the answer that everyone else is giving. The pressure he feels is the normative social influence. The fact that he actually answers the wrong answer, number 3, is conformity. Now, a couple of things, if you can watch the video if you want, you can see my notes on this if you want as well. The important thing here is a couple of the findings. First and foremost, participants in the study conformed on about a third of the trials. They did about 12 trials, and participants will conform in about a third of them. 76% of participants conformed at least once, however. So if you're watching this video, 76% of you are going to conform, and only 24% are not, according to ASH's findings, which means if you say this doesn't apply to you, maybe not. It probably does. Although I hope watching this video does change that for you. A few other things that I would like to highlight as takeaways from ASH's studies on conformity. First and foremost, ASH's study shows us public conformity and not private conformity. Actually, when they tested private conformity, it dropped down to near zero when the participants were just able to answer on a piece of paper. So it didn't really change their attitudes, it just changed their outward actions or their conformity. But I find most interesting for the study is that if the group was not unanimous, in other words, if there was someone who was disagreeing with the rest of the group, in addition to the person that was being tested, that dropped down to very low conformity. And if the participant had an ally, we see no conformity at all. Why is that important? First and foremost, if you're entering into a situation, let's be very honest, let's say you're going to a party where there's drinking and you do not want to do that. If you bring an ally, you will feel less normative social influence. And that's a pretty powerful thing. So that might be something you want to do. Second, let's say you're concerned about issues of equality in our American society today. As someone, myself, who is a middle-aged white guy, cisgender, with lots of privilege, I can't understand the narrative of everybody else who experiences systemic racism. But you know what I can do? I can be an ally. I can be an ally so that we can help reduce the normative social influence of racism experienced at the individual level. And that's one step, not trying to replace someone's narrative, but at least trying to be an ally in that to fight against it. And so if you feel caught in that, this is another way that the ASH line test kind of influences what you can do as agents of change in our society. So a quick little introduction to conformity. I hope that helps for you, and I hope you guys take care.